Diligently working on this. And I'll sit down so I don't say
Just a little north of you. Oh, yeah. It's a great. We'll be streaming as well. And I'm going there. Do you I grew up downtown, and I find being up there is more convenient. Yeah, it's like easy to get in. Something was going on today, probably rain. But there was a section of Main Street closed off going north, and it was gridlocked. And we used to live in along Midtown on Main Spring, which was a really convenient area. We never drove anywhere, and now I drive downtown. I'm like, I can't go past Union Street. It's crazy. It's horrible. It's crazy down here. But
hey, what's going on? Good to see you. How are you? Harry Hussein.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. What's going on, buddy?
Hey man, it's good to be here. That's right. Well, it's funny. I mean, how quickly you sort of adjust your just life patterns. It's like, I've got a move. I don't need to go anywhere.
Sunday with his friends. We had Rose, and then I mean, strong friends up there.
That's great. You're an attorney.
Burns down.
Oh. They're, team.
Okay.
There's a lot of interesting stuff that's about to be but you moved down here from New York City for that job.
Okay.
You're wrangling the working group.
Yes.
That you might enjoy reading.
Thank you.
The other side of the coin.
Appreciate it. So wait till the very end. Once we're done, you to say whatever it is.
Yeah. Okay, good. That's perfect. And I appreciate it. I knew Jeff. I saw that long email, and Jeff is very. And I knew if you notice, and very careful what I say. It says everything you have. They pick up everything. Jeff was. I love Jeff. He was. Something. If you saw that, I read it. I think I read too much. He does the same thing with person. He's a good guy. And he does. It's true what he says, but still. I think I told you what Joe Sokol said.
Oh, what do you say?
Well, Joe Sokol, may rest in peace. We used to have synagogue meetings. I'd sit next to Joe as a past president. Jeff would say something. Joe said, I like Jeff. But that sounds a bit Jeff. Small years again, I'll punch him in. Just he goes on and on, talks about what he does, how he does it. And then he gets to the point,
Ultimately.
Yeah, hopefully.
How are you? Good. How's the staff over there? Good to see you all.
Sunday, maybe see Sunday had an appointment at the doctor's appointment.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was fantastic. It was very beautiful.
I just found this out. So I talked to her last week for a few minutes. So he knows the audience. Yeah. So and she thought she was trying to give, but she has some appointments. Mount Pleasant doctor just take your time. You're Mount Pleasant.
This is the last thing she needs to do.
You know, we got a quorum, so. Yeah. Yeah, I saw that. Ladies and gentlemen, this is-
I left my stuff here.
I'd like to welcome you to the March 16, 2022 meeting of the City of Charleston Planning Commission. My name is Charlie Carish. I'm the chairman. I'm joined, for the record, I'm used to doing this. We're meeting on Zoom. For the record, we're joined by Commission Member Donna Jacobs, Eric Harrison, Vice Chairman Howard Lassane, Mr. Jimmy Bailey, and McKenna Joyce. I think Ms. Laquita Bryant Jenkins will be here, but she's running a little bit late. I'm going to pick on, and so you know, the commission members are volunteers appointed by Charleston City Council. I know you join me in thanking them for their service to the city of Charleston and their work. But I'm going to pick on, and I say pick on nicely, Ms. Joyce, because she's the newest member of the commission and hadn't been with us yet. So I just wanted to let her say a couple of words about herself, if she would.
Yes, hello, everyone.
I do know that she's from California and she went to the College of Charleston, a good school, so.
Yes. Yeah, so my name's McKenna. I am originally from Greenville, California, but wound up in Charleston to attend college back in 2010 and fell in love with it. After school, I lived in New York City briefly until my husband and I made our way back down south. I went to the University of South Carolina School of Law, graduated in 2020. And while I was in college and in law school, I did a lot of work with some local conservation groups, got a taste of some of the environmental issues and conservation and historic preservation issues that we face in Charleston. And I sort of fell in love with that, and it inspired my wanting to work in zoning and land use and environmental law. To write a law school thesis on climate change adaptation through zoning and planning. So I feel like I have a little bit of background and knowledge of that subject. And after I graduated, I started at a civil litigation firm and did everything from personal injury to contract disputes and of course zoning and land use work. So I'm very excited to be joining the Planning Commission and serving Charleston. I love the city. My husband and I decided to call it home, and I hope to, with this group of great people, help improve it. So.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And as you said, you're an attorney, so we appreciate that aspect of you being on this board as well with that. I'm going to run through the procedure of the meeting. I'll read an item on the agenda into the record. Then we'll hear from staff regarding that item. Then we'll hear from the applicant. Then after the applicant, we'll hear anyone that's supportive of the application. And we'll hear from anyone that maybe have opposition to the application. And after that, we'll let the applicant have a chance to rebut and give any final remarks. After that, we'll close the public hearing. And then the planning commission members will discuss, make a motion, ask questions, things like that. After we close the public aspect, I know it's tempting sometimes to reach in and say, I still have a question, but we'd ask you not to, because once we close the public aspect, we need to discuss it amongst ourselves. We appreciate your working with us on that. It's been so long since we met together. I'm going to ask anyone, and I'll do it myself. If you have a cell phone, please put it on silent or turn it off. I'd appreciate that. And with that, I'm going to ask Mr. Morgan, Christopher Morgan, to introduce any staff that's participating today and let us know any changes to the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple of housekeeping notes. First off, just be aware that we are live on YouTube, and all these meetings are now recorded on YouTube. I guess they were getting recorded during the pandemic too, but for being in person, that is our YouTube camera at present. And also the microphones above you, these are microphones, are extremely sensitive and are particularly adept at picking up conversations between commission members during the meeting. So that is all going on YouTube. So just be forewarned. One thing I wanted to point out to you all, we have a gift for each of you sitting on your desk. Is your own personal copy of our newly adopted city plan. We got them printed.
Autographed by staff.
I'm sorry.
Autographed by staff.
Oh, no, we should. But anyway, I think you all will use that regularly and keep up with it. And have it as your guide for a lot of the decisions that are going to be coming up in the coming years. We do have a couple of amendments to the agenda. First off, the 63 Columbus Street item has had its parcels reduced. One of the parcels that dealt with the area in the Hampstead Square area has been pulled off this application. We'll still be looking at the other parcels that relate to the Fraser School site, but just so everybody knows that has changed. And then 24 North Market has been deferred. That is the rules. As far as our staff tonight, I am Christopher Morgan, planning manager here at the city. Also helping tonight will be Anna Hart, our senior zoning planner, and helping with the meeting itself is Chloe Stuber, our senior planner, as well as Philip Overcash, a senior planner. And tonight we can see in person Philip Clapper, our clerk. It's his first in-person meeting with you all as well. He's been helping us on the digital side over the last year. But anyway, with that, that's all I had to say.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan. And I want to, on behalf of the commission members, thank staff for the good work that they do, and they always do when we were meeting virtually and then back in person. So thank you for your work. The first item on the agenda is the minutes and the February 16th, 2022 minutes. And is any additions, corrections, or motion regarding that? I'm always gonna, again, I always look at Ms. Jacobs because she reads these things very thoroughly and usually proofs them very well, which I appreciate. If not, is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Mr. Chairman, I'll move to approve the minutes and appreciate the addition of dashboard to the agenda.
Second that.
Great, so there's a motion by Ms. Jacobs to approve the minutes and a second by Mr. Lassane. Before, when we were meeting virtually, I was reading the names. And I asked Chris, should I do roll call vote, or since we're here and we do a hand raise, for the record, do we need to, or for the minutes or I'll read it off.
You can do it for how everyone votes. So I think just a hand raise of affirmative.
Everyone in favor of approving the minutes, please raise your hand. Great, thank you. Okay, so Mr. Bailey is abstaining because he was absent from that meeting, right? Okay, and right, Ms. Joyce said she wasn't on the commission yet, so anyway, but we still have so anyway, thank you. The first item on the agenda is rezonings. Mr. Morgan said number 163 Columbus Eastside Peninsula. TMS number, and Chris, correct me if it changed. I'll read it off, but if it changed, you'll let us know. TMS number 4590902 152 153 and 168, approximately 2.43 acres request subject property be included in S school overlay zone diverse residential DR2F as amended. Mr. Morgan.
Those were first TMS numbers, parcels 152, 153, and 168. And just to orient you all to the site, my cursor is working. You can see in smaller images compared to it being at home and having a computer screen right in front of you, but I'll do my best to point things out for you. Yes, these are the parcels that are part of the Fraser Elementary School property owned by the Charleston County School District. The school itself is here at Columbus Street, fronting on Columbus and Drake. And then there are two other parcels to the rear that don't have buildings on them. And these would all be included in the school overlay as per this request. The Hampstead Square quadrant here would not be included as per a change this afternoon by the school district in reference to this application. They will address that one at a later date. But this is an application to go to add the school overlay district to these three parcels. As you all know, who've been on the commission for a while, we do see these periodically. And our staff is always very supportive of the school overlays because we feel that schools are a very good part of a neighborhood, but the school overlay process gives us a special exception requirement that really makes the schools able to be adapted to a particular neighborhood. So in this instance, if this property is added to the school overlay, then the school district would apply to our Board of Appeals zoning to get a special exception that would look at the details of the size of the student body, traffic impacts, outdoor impacts, access points, lighting, things like that on the site. And so all those details will be covered during that special exception process. And I know very often we do get a lot of folks that see the signs for the school overlay and think that that is the time to discuss a lot of details on these. But the best time for the discussion of the details, the particulars of a particular school, is during the special exception process. And that by virtue of endorsing this for school overlay, we can start it down the road to that process. We have a few other pictures just to show for everybody. This is in our new plan as a recommendation for the neighborhood district. So that fits with school overlay to fit within a neighborhood. Area description for neighborhood is here that talks about the mix of uses as examples that are throughout the city. This is an aerial image of the property. Again, it's across the street from the Trident Tech campus. And I believe the program that they are working on for this site is currently housed at the Trident Tech site. It's an early high school type program, but the school district folks can tell you a little bit more about that. This is another aerial oblique image here showing the current structure on the property and a border of the site there at Hampstead Square. And here's a street view of the subject property. The background on the school overlay is that, of course, its intent is to provide for appropriate sites for the establishment of expansion of school uses within residential zoning districts. And our recommendation is for approval of these 3 parcels to the addition of the school overlay district. With that.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan. And I should say, if you get up to speak, if you would identify yourself, give us your name, if you're representing someone who you represent, and your address. So is the applicant with us today? Thank you, ma'am.
My name is Angela Barnett. I'm Director of Planning and Real Estate for Charleston County School District, address 3999 Bridgeview Drive. I am here today, and thank you, Commission members, for taking the time to hear our proposal. We are looking to be included in that school overlay district. As you know, Wilmot Fraser is housed on that campus and was utilized as a school. And we are looking at moving forward with a support structure for the early college high school on that property. We most definitely will continue to work with the community as we move forward, because we definitely want to be part of what the neighborhood likes. So we will continue that effort. Would hope that you all would approve this proposal.
How old, just out of curiosity, I've been to Fraser Elementary years ago. We used to do a lunch buddies program there, but how old, that school's been there a long time, hasn't it?
That school's been there. I do not know the exact.
Okay, that's all right. It's
We're talking a very long, and it's been closed a while.
early 50s, yeah. Okay.
It has been closed a while, and we have been using it for storage.
Okay.
And there's been everything from little dog parks that have been there and everything else, but currently we're looking at moving forward with the project and working with the community in order to embrace the structures that they.
Right. Well, it's a very vibrant area. So thank you, ma'am. Is anyone here that would like to speak in favor of the application? Would there's anyone here that'd like to speak in opposition to the application? Yes, ma'am. If you'll step up and let us know who you are.
Yes, my name is Beatrice.
You're good. Thank you.
Okay. My name is Beatrice Bernier, and I live at 38 Nassau Street in the neighborhood.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So far, I know that one of the parcels has been taken out, but there is no explanation where the corridor talk that MOU will be written between the school district and the city to let the park be a community use public access. But we don't have anything. So I oppose the school overlay because it doesn't say that one form, this is not going to be activated back without an MOU. We had a meeting about 2 months ago, and then on this subject, and at the end of the meeting organized by the CCSD at Private College, that there will be an agreement and MOU. And on the eve of your meeting, you have just been changed an hour or 2 hours ago. It was to include this no MOU. I do not believe this is going to happen. That's the reason why I'm opposing, because I do not see how this is not going to come back by the back door without an MOU. Second, the school, as you say, part of the neighborhood adapting in the fabric of a neighborhood. The school 400 students, 15 from the peninsula. People are not from the neighborhood, not even from the peninsula. It was presented as a school, as you said, between Trident and just an annex at the beginning, where most of the class will be here and shared facility. No, it becomes a huge building full of parking, taking open space that is and green space. By the way, that goes right in the face of the Charleston Dutch dialogue that recommend to keep any open space and any sites to not develop other sites. It's proposed as parking and retention bond, and there are people here. So they are like parking underused for years, where the entire school year, all staff is here, and there is still plenty of space. This is going to change and become so there is another this and that's it. And I'm opposing for those various reasons that had been presented and requested from the resident to vote in favor. It was going to be a rehab and just little, they need a gymnasium and the lab space and that's it, and not the full school. And then we can't share the parking. We can't share any longer with the Trident College parking that is totally underused. And then we are going to also grab this eventually. So I oppose an overlay district that goes beyond the building. Here, they can find a way, if they want to reduce the building as they want, to do it like East Academy, Mitchell. They're like 3 or 4 story high. You could be much tighter. You could accommodate anything you want, and you can work your early college, really, your early college experience with Trident. I think that's the reason why I'm opposing. Okay.
Would you just say your name one more time? You have-
38 and Nassau.
Okay, thank you.
I will oppose also any form of coming back, of the park coming back in without.
Thank you, ma'am. Does anyone else would like to speak in opposition? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Stacey Barrington. I live at 59 Hurst Street, which is just walking away from the parks and the school. And I'm not opposing that the school itself be in the overlay district, but I am, like Ms. Bernier said, opposing that at a later date, the school district tried to take the park that is part of corners that formed the original Hampstead Square Mall. There is no clear title to that. The city owns it as far as we know. And as a neighborhood, we don't want to see our parks taken away from us. It's public space, and there is some question that if the school were ever to try to take it, that would automatically force the title to go back to revert to Henry Lawrence family. This is probably right up your alley as far as real estate goes. And as Ms. Bernier was saying, what the school has come to us and shown us on different drawings and charts and stuff is that they want to put parking behind the whole school. This would all be parking. And right now, this piece here is a giant field that absorbs water, and it has trees and growth and has a fence around it. And it's actually bigger than the part of the mall square that the school is telling the neighborhood that they have to have so that the children can use it as a playground for their physical education activities. In my opinion, I'd last like to say that this corner, where is it? Aiken Street and Columbus. Let's just be frank. There's a whole bunch of drug dealers that hang out there and people have been shot on that corner. I feel that it's a little irresponsible of the school to have kids playing and doing sports right on Columbus Street, when in fact, if they were using this green space back here, they'd be protected from any potential bullet stray flying at them by this whole huge building that's in front of them. So I think you have to take that into account, that there's still pockets of the east side that are really bad. And there's still some really bad folks that hang out around there, and we probably shouldn't be putting kids right out there on Mall Square.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Anyone else who would like to speak in opposition? Yes, sir.
I'm actually going to try to come in between supporting and opposing, if that's possible.
Okay, well, yes, sir. You tell us what your thoughts are.
I'm going to just read this because I know. My name is Steve Bailey, and I live at 38 Nassau Street, East Side. For the last 6 years, Harry well knows, I've put an enormous amount of effort into the park at Hempstead Mall. I've raised money, I pulled weeds, I picked up garbage. I'm a Hempstead Ranger, by the way. We have a group of Hempstead Rangers, and we clean up and take care of the park. It's a very organic group. But my focus today is going to be on the southeast quadrant, if you will, and I think things are moving. I do want to say before I get started, the folks previous were exactly right about the parking area. It should definitely not be paved over. We're happy to offer you parking counts, everything. There's so much unused parking space across the street. Using 45% of this thing. But I'm not going to talk about that today. We have all kinds of details if you like. We know a lot about the parking and we know a lot about the fun. But I want to talk about the park today. First of all, I'd like to say I'm a huge fan of the school, Early College High School. If I had a high school age daughter, I want her to be in Vanessa Diddy's school. She's terrific. And I also want to acknowledge and thank Ron Cramps of the CCSD, who's listened very well with the neighborhood, and I really appreciate his work. Let's be fair to that. But board needs to understand, and CCSD in particular needs to understand, that the school district has earned distrust in the neighborhood. All the distrust in the neighborhood, they've earned the distrust. Put simply, the school district has been a terrible neighbor over the decades. I'd like to tell you just a little bit, if you don't mind, the history, because we know a lot about it. We'll take long. In the 60s, the school district literally wiped out the northeast quadrant of the park, turned it into a parking lot when they built C8 Brown. It just disappeared. It wasn't restored until the early 80s when school was closed and Tribe took it over. 2009, CCSD, facing budget shortfalls, closed Fraser School over strong neighborhood opposition. It has left the school empty and deteriorating ever since. Now it wants to tear it down over community opposition and wants to pave over the green field behind it. And the school district has fenced out the neighborhood out of this district for decades. This is the oldest public park in the city. It was built as a public green before the American Revolution. I want to repeat that. Before the American Revolution. That's all time ago. It's the geographic and spiritual heart of the East Side that needs to be open to the public. Okay. The Post and Courier put it very well in a recent editorial. Quote, the district has acted a bit, the school district has acted a bit like a bad neighbor, fencing off the park from the east side and doing little more than an occasional mow. Couldn't be more correct. The letters of opposition that you received and others that I have in my hand from people who didn't get them in on time are an expression of this distrust in the neighborhood. Today, I'm not going to oppose the inclusion of these parcels into the revitalized park. Because I think the way to do it, I've come to believe, is through the BZA process, just what Mr. Morgan over here said. This condition as a part of a special exception, or through an MOU with the city to ensure public access. I believe we need both the MOU and a special exception, given the history here. School district has been resistant to this up until now. The city itself has been a bystander, which frankly I find incomprehensible. Now I believe that the city and the school district are moving in the right direction. I am for the moment encouraged, and we'll see what happens next with that. But if we're, but we want to put the city and the school district on notice that this can be a great park, as Harry himself personally told me, and the public needs access to it. We're accepting nothing less. It's the people's park. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Bailey, for your time, and thank you for your articles in the paper. So anyone else like to speak in opposition? Would the applicant like to address any issues? Thank you.
So I had an opportunity to speak to Mr. Bailey actually before the meeting about a few things. So just for a little bit of clarification, one of the reasons that we did pull that parcel was because we want to move forward. We had already initiated that. couple of weeks ago about working with the city on drafting an MOU for after-hour use, just like we do with all of our facilities and other municipalities. So we are moving forward with that. We also have some other issues that we just want to clean up on that parcel, which pertain to title. With that, we decided that it would be best for us to pull that parcel until we finalize those pieces. And then we'll determine if we even bring it back. We may just leave it under the designation that it is. But we definitely want to be good stewards with the community and move forward with drafting something for after-hour use. As for the stormwater, having dealt with the city of Charleston in the new stormwater ordinances that were adopted back in July, I know that there is that concern about stormwater drainage, and a lot of the design that we're looking at is some subsurface storage. I lean towards the fact that a lot of the design issues and some of the concerns will be ultimately addressed by the BZA. And ultimately, our purpose and my purpose here is just to receive and hopefully communicate the zoning need for the property so that we can at least move forward to have this dialogue.
Have you all met with the neighborhoods and you've had meetings, I'm
We
assuming?
have had community
Good.
meetings with the neighborhoods, and I'm sure we will continue to do so as we move forward with the design conceptuals, and they've already been sharing those types of things with the community. And we continue to want feedback because it is one of those things that we want to move forward in a very productive manner, and we want to be transparent in this process.
Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate it. And that's going to close the public aspect of this. Mr. Morgan, will you tell us again what you did before? If we approve this, so where does it go and what do they look at? So we're all very clear on where it would go.
Since it is a rezoning, the overlay is a rezoning, and it would go, after you all make your recommendation on it, would go to city council, of course, for a public hearing, and then for city council's ultimate approval. Then it would go to our BZA zoning for a special exception that would look at all the details about how the school functions, where the parking is.
Parking, they look at the playground, the park issue, all that stuff.
And comments at that meeting, that would be a public meeting, of course. And the interesting thing about how special exceptions work is conditions can be placed on a special exception. You all can't put conditions on the standard rezone. But on a special exception, there could be conditions about, let's just say, hours of operation of the school, or where an entrance or exit is, or something like that. Those can all be covered.
And those are, they get public input at those meetings. Okay, great. Is there any questions, comments, or motions by Commissioner? Go ahead.
So, just Mr. Morgan, it's a zone DR2F, right, presently. And I think the question is about ownership and whether or not, if it is a public space, under DR2F, depending on who the owner is, at any point in time, we know that zoning goes with the land. So it could actually be developed as multifamily housing based, because housing can go on DR2F, right? So if it goes into private hands without any restrictions, then you're looking at housing being built on that space at any future date and time. So really what we're looking at is stewardship of this area and whether or not the school overlay would work, because we want our communities to thrive, and part of that is institutions that service them. So I guess my question is that part of the question in front of us, is how do we ascertain ownership? Or we're not supposed to ascertain ownership, but that's pretty much clear who owns it.
That's for others to research. The information we have at the city level is that it is owned by the school district, but I know they're going to do some title research and all that kind of thing. So the item that's before you tonight has been reduced in scope, and it's just those 3 parcels, not including that quadrant of the Hampstead Square area.
Ms. Jacobs?
So the title question is only with the parcel that was removed from the register.
Okay. Right.
That's all I know. I've heard that from folks in the neighborhood. Again, our data that we use for applications and things show all these parcels as owned by the school district.
Okay, and my other question is, you
exceptions if possible with conditions to be reviewed by the BZA. Will it also go through TRC review if they start building? So with the TRC would be addressed all those draining issues that they brought to us. when
Also,
they-
you want an AR as well.
Mr. Bailey, do you have something?
Just really a comment, when we got the agenda package, before we received the public comments, my initial concerns were based on what appeared to be a reasonable argument about the ownership of that quadrant. And I felt very uncomfortable coming here tonight and voting on that with a reasonable question as to who the actual owner is. I'm glad that's been removed from tonight's vote, and I hope that will be resolved. And I think when I read the comments, some of them lengthy and thoughtful, that was, for the most part, the primary concern. We've heard some others tonight, but I feel very confident that there are additional processes that this will have to go through that will address, I think, one way or the other, all of the issues that have been raised tonight about parking and drainage and so on and so forth.
Motion.
I'd like to just make a couple of comments.
Yes, sir.
I think, in many ways, no surprise to Steve Bailey. Apologies to you, Jimmy. I agree with Mr. Bailey. I mean, I think this is a situation where a school is a really positive thing for the neighborhood. Having Fraser School sitting in the middle of the neighborhood empty over the last 13 years has not been good for the neighborhood. So I commend the school district for, I think this is a wonderful use. So I support that, and I will support the rezoning. But on the Hampstead Square portion, and I know we're not even voting on that, but I've been working with Mr. Bailey in the neighborhood on this for a long time. I really think it's important that the school district work with the neighborhood to make that portion of the park compatible with and supportive of the overall neighborhood. I really think it's been a terrible oversight by the school district to allow that to have been fenced and set aside from the neighborhood for all these years. I just think that's very unfortunate. And I think, I don't want to rehash everything that Mr. Bailey said, but he is spot on. So BZA will handle the questions of use and the impacts on the neighborhood. But please take the fence down and allow the park to be improved so that not just the kids. I mean, we have a great example right where we are. The school district uses the space with an MOU from the city and directly in front of the Gilliard. The kids from Buste use this space as their, it's city owned. There's a great agreement. It works really well. It's a great example of an urban space being used by lots of different people. And there's no reason we can't do the exact same thing at Hampstead Square. So I encourage the school district to do that. And there is, and the comments about the Palmer campus parking, I would encourage, a really robust agreement to share that parking space. I know that the school itself is a shared situation, so there's no reason that we can't prioritize the parking at the Palmer campus too. So anyhow, I will support this. And if there has not been a motion, I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, so there's the motion by Mr. Bailey to approve. Any other questions, comments? I do want to say.
I'll second.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I'll second it.
Yeah, no, Mr. Bailey will do the second, sorry. But I do want to say that Mr. Bailey, I'm sorry, Mr. Lassane, I got my mind on Bailey now. Mr. Lassane was spot on with the school district. I'm glad y'all are meeting with the neighbors and talking to them, but this thing could be, as he said, just a beautiful win-win situation with more feedback back and forth, the neighborhoods and the school district. I think it'd be a wonderful project. So I'll get it right. Mr. Lassane motion, Mr. Bailey second. Other discussion? If not, everyone in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. So we're good for the record. Thank you. And thank everyone for coming and for your public input.
Thank you.
Sorry, the second item on the agenda is 100 Line Street, Canterbury, Ellicott, and that's for TMS number 4600801040, approximately 0.06 acres, but it's a small piece of property, especially zoning from diverse residential DR2 to commercial transitional CT. Mr. Morgan.
This is in the Canterbury, Ellicott neighborhood. And it is a property that is just west of Cumming Street along the north side of Lime Street. And we'll show you some pictures of it in just a minute. And this is a request to rezone to the commercial transitional district from the DR2F that surrounds it. In our city plan, it shows as our neighborhood designation. So CT type commercial is compatible in a district like that, provided that it's, you know, like a site that has previously been commercial or that is an appropriate location for commercial. There's a description of that neighborhood area of the city plan recommendations. Here is an aerial image that shows the building that at present sits on the property is on the front, probably 60% or so of the property. In the back, 40% is vacant area. And it's in line with other buildings that front on Line Street. Here you see the subject property here. Again, it's kind of got a much more of a commercial building look to it. Its construction pattern, other buildings nearby have maybe a little bit more of a residential look, but this one definitely does look from a street view as a construction, as a commercial type building. Here's a street view image of it. There again, it looks like it's a masonry structure. And here's some nearby buildings that are adjoining it. This property is, in our view, somewhat similar to some other properties nearby that have had over the last few years some rezonings to CT, such as the corner store building that's at Line and Cumming. And then there's a commercial structure that is here that we zone CT for essentially the building footprint here at 92 and 98 Line. And then this is the property in question at present tonight. And our feeling is that this is a similar situation because it has a history of commercial use. It's a commercial type structure that rezoning of the building and its footprint to CT would not be incompatible with the rest of the neighborhood. You will hear, and you've probably seen some of the letter from the neighborhood association that they've got concerns about this. I'm not sure if neighborhood association members are here tonight, but we can certainly read the letter in reference to this. But staff had felt comfortable that just the footprint of this site going to the CT district was appropriate. And here's one more view of the street and just the overview of what DR2 allows versus CT. CT does allow those commercial uses. In this neighborhood, you can also do a short-term rental in the CT district that you cannot do in DR2. And I think that may play into some of the neighborhood's concerns as well. But we're recommending approval of the rezoning of the building footprint.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan. Is the applicant here? Yes, sir. Would you like to speak? Thank you.
Frank Murray is also here. She's represented for the applicant as well. Building is has been used for parents use for salon right now. It's been used that way for about 20 years. Prior to that, has a significant amount of history. The prior owners to that was Dr. Turner and Catherine McCutcheon. They were African American OBGYNs in Charleston. So we got a lot of pride in the building. We feel like the building's always been used for commercial purposes. Right around it is a footprint of condominiums that are residential, that are primarily students. We feel like this particular use will kind of give the students a little bit more respect and character because of their being there. I think they will respect the site. Typically, they don't park on the site. There are about 4 or 5 parking spaces behind the site. And every time I visited the site, they hadn't really disrespected the site. We think the CT use would be in character with what's going on right in that area, right on the corner is commercial. And as was pointed out, across the other corner is CT, and then down the street is CT. It's a great little walkable, bikeable, transient area. And it's just, we think it's a good fit use, and I think from the real estate standpoint, it kind of protects value as well.
Thank you, sir. If anyone else would like to speak with your team, that's fine. Okay, thank you. Would anyone like to speak on behalf of this application, in favor of the application? If not, anyone opposed to the application? We do have, for the record, you want to read this into the record or surmise it? Do you have a copy, or we can just?
I can go over it.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Morgan.
So this is a letter from Canberra Neighborhood Association dated today, in reference to 100 Line Street, the rezoning. It says, Chairman Garrish and commission members, on behalf of Canberra Elliott Borough, want to convey our position on the applicant's request. We are greatly concerned with the upzone request from the residential to commercial DR2F to CT. The property has been listed for sale and is currently contingent. Our neighborhood has lost many retail and office buildings that are converted into short-term rental units since commercially zoned properties in the STR overlay do not have to be owner occupied. Our neighborhood is striving to maintain a balance between residential and commercial, especially with the pressure of STR conversions. Retail, office, service businesses, and restaurants are essential to maintain and increase the vitality of our neighborhood. The applicant references 92 Line Street as support for their request. The building on that property has been in continuous use as a retail and office space and was zoned to CT, but the rest of the property was kept DR2F. We prefer the applicant's property not be upzoned, but given a use variance to continue commercial use. If the commission is inclined to grant an upzone, we request that the existing building footprint be zoned CT and the rest of the lot kept DR2F. Thank you for consideration of the neighborhood's position, and that's from Marion Hawkins, the neighborhood president.
Yeah, just wanted to ask.
Yes, sir.
Just want to make sure I understand. The request is to rezone the entire property, but the staff recommendation is just the building footprint.
Yes, which would be similar to what we did with the property just down the street at 92 Line Street.
Since I read the letter in the record, would the applicant like to respond to anything in the letter, just since?
Yeah, just based on what he, so many of our neighborhoods downtown are becoming, it's almost like you're living in the Coliseum of development. And so with this particular property right here, these are all condominiums of, I think, around 50, 55 feet or so, full of students. So this particular use is more like a neighborhood use to support neighborhood services, to bring adults into the community and bring some stability to the street. I just kind of feel like, to the point of the last discussion that we had concerning DR2F. DR2F, it appears to me that another skyscraper can go in there with no zoning change at all. So I think the use is just a great use. I do understand the balance in the neighborhood and what's going on. As we looked at that building and use of that building and footprint, I think works really good. Parking doesn't distract from the street, doesn't add any more cars to the street. In my opinion, as a 30+ year realtor in this market, great use. I think it'd be great for the community.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. I just want to give you that opportunity since we read that letter in the record. That'll close the public aspect of this, commission members. Ms. Harrison.
Just for as a matter of transparency, the 9298 is my office. And I went through this process back in 2019, I believe. And so I think staff's recommendation is a partial rezoning to the footprint of the building, which is what I requested back in 2019. And I do think, you know, the upside of this is that I walk by your building every single day and I see the light on. And I know that there's some activity going on in there and that it can be a commercial use because it has all the bells and whistles of a commercial building. And 9298 is used commercially. Although during the pandemic it was a she shed. So, and you know, and what is right around them is zone DR2F, and right beside me is I kept it DR2F. But I will say, bringing Line Street into this activity of commercials, quasi residential, you know, various activities is a good thing. And, limiting my building to the footprint of it to CT was really, just because I didn't know if I wanted to have a coffee shop one day. And so that gives it flexibility. And so I think the same thing could occur here, where you get that flexibility of uses. And I think that is why, and I understood the neighborhood's concern, because the easiest thing for me to have done is request MU workforce housing, because I'm right there, right beside it, see it every day. But I didn't. And so understanding what I needed and what I wanted, and understanding zoning goes with the land, that was the most appropriate. But I'm not going to vote on your application, but I understand staff's recommendation and trying to maintain this kind of cohesive balance between short-term rentals and residents, and trying to get businesses back on that path. So not only do I walk past your building, I walk down to the corner store, I walk down to the sightsee. So, it's good to see that.
Thank you, Ms. Harrison. Other commission members, comments, questions, motions, Ms. Jacobs?
I think the conundrum for everybody is this, well, you can tear the building down and drop some more apartments there, and what does that do to the fabric of the neighborhood? Or if you take it to a zoning that has potential for short-term rental, I think Dominar, even when we're a short-term overlay, just felt like we're full of that, and we don't want everything. So we have this difficult conundrum of what's the best balance, because pure CP there as a commercial transitional is great for the neighborhood. But that also opens a door to something that Canberra is begging to shut. How we address that moving forward. But
If I can respond, so right now it's DR2F, which means, but based on the size of it, you would not be able to get more than 2 units on there and barely park it. So you couldn't get 4 units on there. You couldn't even get probably.
It's 0.06.
Yeah,
Pretty
3
small.
units on there. When you move down to CT, the requirements for a dwelling unit per square foot actually increases. So you're now at, I think, 2,250 square feet if you want 3, and then 2,000 if you want 2, 4,000 if you want 2, right? 4,000 square feet per 4,000.
It's 19.6.
Yeah.
Units per acre.
So really what you're looking at is a building that can either be used commercially or a building that's going to be a single residence. That's all you can put there.
Yep, that size.
and especially if we just consider staff's recommendation, not just the footprint of the building, then you get to where you're just the tiny little shop that needs to be.
Right, I'm 400, I think it's six, I'm like right at 600 square.
It's almost similar to your two buildings. Yeah, I wrote down.
Yeah.
Questions, comments, motions? Mr.
I
Osei?
would just say, I 100% agree with Ms. Jacobs' comment, and that's the same dilemma I was having, but I think having heard Ms. Harrison's comments, I think I'm convinced, and I'll make a motion to accept staff's recommendation that we limit the rezoning to the footprint of the building. I hope that's a minute. I hope that's agreeable to the applicant because, and just to explain, we've gotten a lot of applications from this neighborhood, from property owners who, I don't want to accuse them of this, but it was fairly apparent that they were trying to back their way into getting short-term rental to being eligible for that. I don't think that is the case in this case, and it wasn't the case in Ms. Harrison's case, and I supported that. And I have opposed other applications for that reason. And so it's foolish consistency is the foolish consistency is the hobgoblin of small minds. So I don't want to have a foolish consistency in the case of commercial zoning in this neighborhood. So I will support it, and I'll make the motion to accept staff's
So
recommendation.
Mr. Osei makes a motion to accept staff's recommendation. Ms. Jacobs seconds it. Other questions, comments?
I appreciated hearing Ms. Harrison's perspective on that history there.
Thank you. So there's a motion by Mr. Osei, second by Ms. Jacobs. All in favor, raise your right hand or raise your hand. Anyone opposed, abstention, one abstention. Great, thank you, and thank you all for coming. I hope you understand what we did with this.
So the footprint, just the footprint of the building is recommended for the CT. And then all excess land behind it, which means that will still be DR2.
Thank you for coming, sir.
Thank you.
The third item on our agenda, 24 North Market, is deferred. Fourth item is 517 Joseph Street, Bel Air, James Island, TMS number 4241-000015, approximately 0.38 acres, request rezoning from single family residential, SR1 to single family residential STR. Mr. Morgan.
Okay, so you all have seen some requests in this area over the last few years, and we'll talk a little bit in a few minutes about what our new comprehensive plan has to say in reference to this area. But just to orient you, this is Harborview Road. This is the 5-lane section of Harborview Road where it connects to the James Island connector a little bit further to the east. Joseph Street is perpendicular to that, and the subject property is right here. It's a single family residence. It backs up to some other single family zoning, and then the rest of the neighborhood is a real mix from R4 Charleston County, which is essentially a single family category, to M12 to the south, which is a 12 unit and acre multifamily category. And also a good bit of STR in the city, which is a kind of a duplex or two-family residential category. And then you might remember there was some apartment development going on in this area that's DR1 and STR back here that was rezoned a year or so ago. Here is the crux of the issue. So this is an area, as you can see in this light gray or tealish gray color, and again, the subject property is right over here, that because of its elevation is actually longer term threatened to have tidal inundation in the coming years. And this is an area that, based on the recommendations from further back from the Dutch dialogues and then the analysis of our city by Wagner and Ball through the comprehensive planning process, we determined that these are areas that we really should not be recommending for greater densities in. And most of this neighborhood is in this category. So since the plan has been adopted, this is the first item that's come in from this neighborhood that has requested greater density going up to the STR district. And so it does present the situation that staff is not comfortable recommending for a rezoning here for more density. I will show some other images from the neighborhood just so you get a sense of this, but here's the background from the comprehensive plan about low impact and conserved, and it's an area of potential tidal flood risk, and particularly as time goes on, sea level rises, and the idea is that it would be 1 unit an acre or less, and that type of construction would be elevated, that type of thing. Here is the current property and the structure that's on the current property from an aerial image. Here is an image from the street view. And again, there is some vacant area to the left of the current structure on the property. Here are some structures that are across the street. So you see the duplex nature of a lot of these. So it is a very diverse neighborhood over here. You notice how all the structures typically are elevated. The newer structures are elevated. So that gives you a sense that the height or the elevation of the property has been challenged, and so people have been building up to meet flood standards. Here's the difference between the SR1 district and the STR. It is an increase in density from 4.8 units an acre to 7.3 units an acre for single family and 9.7 units an acre for two family. And so our recommendation of this application is disapproval.
Great, thank you, Mr. Morgan. Is the applicant here? The applicant is not here, I guess. So would anyone like to be heard in support of the application? Anyone in opposition to the application? Close the public aspect of that. It's unusual for us to have an applicant here, but motions, questions, Ms. Jacobs?
Mr. Chairman, I read through this thing because I did remember this application that we reviewed back, and I went back and looked, it was January last year, 2021.
You know, at first I was like, okay, it's already a mixed use in there. different densities, different things, and we had approved that application. But then upon staff's, further punching about the low impact conserved and the fact that we're trying to move forward in a positive way with the city plan and the Dutch dialogues, I'm going to make a motion that we support staff's recommendations for disapproval.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Second?
Well, I'll just say that after two in a row, that kind of a conundrum, because in the comprehensive plan process, I don't know that we spent more time on any two subjects other than trying to zone things appropriately to deal with flooding risk and trying to find ways to create more diverse housing options. But I think if I have to pick one, I'm going to agree with Ms. Jacobs, and I'm going to second her motion.
Thank you. There's a motion by Ms. Jacobs to accept staff's recommendation of denial. There's a second by Mr. Bailey. Any other questions, comments? And if not, all in favor of the motion to deny, please raise your hand. Anyone opposed? Thank you. Subdivisions, 95 Cannon Street, Cannon Road, Peninsula, TMS number 4601502-008, approximately 0.30 acres. Request approval of subdivision concept plan for 5 lots, 1 mixed use and 4 single-family residential zoned limited business LB. Yes, ma'am, you go ahead. Ms. Harp, you go ahead. No, I'm glad you're right there. No. I wasn't gonna miss you anyway, but you go ahead.
Well, it's very nice to see you in person. This is a subdivision for 95 Cannon Street. This is, the applicant is requesting subdivision concept plan approval for 0.2966 acres on Cannon Street in downtown on the peninsula. This is an infill project that consists of the creation of 5 new lots for mixed use. 4 lots will be for residential use. Let's see, 4 lots for residential use, and 1 for mixed use with commercial and 4 residential units. You can see there are no wetlands in this parcel. The property is zoned LB, limited business. The LB zoning allows for single family, attached and detached residential units, multifamily residential units, and several commercial uses. And LB limits the hours of operation and certain uses. The surrounding parcels contain a mix of residential and commercial uses. This is just for illustration purposes only, as you are not approving anything on the parcel, just the subdivision, just the lines. So that shows the 4 lots that they're proposing, 4 lots for residential use. And on the front on Cannon Street will be the commercial use. The applicant has received approval from the Board of Zoning Appeals zoning for a parking variance and a density variance. And you received all the information, TRC, concept plans, and TRC comments. He has gone through TRC 3 times and he received approval from TRC. And in this case, it comes to you because there are 5 lots. Anything that is more than 4 lots will come to the Planning Commission. No, there's no creation of rights of ways or anything like that, just the 5 lots. And after it comes, receives approval or your decision, it will go through TRC for preliminary plat for the subdivision, the 5 lots, and it will go for site plan for the commercial use only, for the mixed use lot. The 4 residential units do not receive TRC. Those are viewed as single family residential units. And the staff recommendation for that is for approval.
Thank you, Ms. Moore. It's good to see you as well. Is the applicant here?
Good evening, I'm Trey Lynn with Forsberg Engineering. I'm the civil engineer who prepared the plans for this. Anna did a great job explaining the project. I'm just here to answer any questions y'all may have.
Great, thank you, sir. Appreciate you being here, and I hope Mr. Forsberg is doing well. Anyone here in support of this application? Anyone here in opposition to the application? That being said, that'll close the public aspect of this. Commission members, questions, comments, motion?
Motion to approve.
Great, Ms. Harrison makes a motion to approve. Is there other? Second by Mr. Lassane. Motion by Ms. Harrison, second by Mr. Hussein to approve the subdivision request, number one. All in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? I think that's unanimous vote.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to thank them for making sure the link for TRC was in there. Because I didn't appreciate it. So I know you did.
We've got Ms. Jacobs keeping you on course, I promise you.
We appreciate it.
Ms. Joyce, you'll realize Ms. Jacobs keeps us all straight. And sends it back, so she reads everything she knows, so she does a good job. So we'll go to zonings. Number one is 1939 Piper Drive, DuPont Station, West Ashley, TMS number 35009000967, approximately 0.28 acres, request zoning of single family SR1. Was that property coming? It usually says what it was, no big deal in the county or wherever it was.
R4.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, this kind of goldish color is R4 in the county. And so the SR1 is the closest compatible in an area like this. And given that it is in our suburban edge, that is in line with the recommendations of the new plan. And so we are recommending for SR1 on the property.
I want to hear, would anyone like to be heard on this? If not, that'll close the public aspect. Questions, comments, motion? Move for approval. Thank you, Mr. Hussein. Second by Mr. Bailey. Someone get it right. Mr. Hussein, Mr. Bailey, second. I think I got it straight. Everyone in favor, raise your hand, please. Thank you. I think it's unanimous. Thank you. We now go to, yes, sir.
Personal privilege. Mr. Morgan, what's the status of the annexation coordinator position?
Good question.
Good question.
We actually tomorrow and Friday are having our final interviews for that position. I hope to have a hire within the week and hope to have somebody on board sometime in April.
That is great.
I'd like to see some of these donut holes eliminated.
And, you know, for a while, we didn't see many annexations. We've been seeing them come in.
Yeah.
So I hope we see a lot more. Once we got this program.
And it's amazing.
There's a really pretty good tax differential, particularly in West Ashley, with city taxes versus PSD. So.
And it's amazing to me, if you look at some of the neighbors like in Avondale, Moreland, Burnstown, probably on the front, it's what's still in the county. It's just amazing.
Yeah.
But anyway, so now we have presentations. First thing we can do is is ask Chloe to give us some update or how affordable housing dashboard report, if she would. And so everyone knows for the record, and Ms. Joyce's commission is really focused and really concerned about trying to help Charleston City Council and solve some of the affordable housing problems we have and doing everything we can for that. So.
All right, good evening, everyone. And thank you, Ms. Jacobs, for the reminder that you all asked for these updates on a monthly basis. And earlier this month on March 4th, we had an open data day. I don't know if you heard about it. It was all the buzz in the community. So we had it's a new annual event that the city will have to and possibly more often than annually, that is run by our Office of Innovation to share how we are improving our efforts for transparency and sort of lifting the hood up of various efforts in the city. And one of the highlights of the Open Data Day this year was our new affordable housing dashboard that housing staff and our GIS division have been working on. If you combine the dashboard creation itself and all of the data collection that went into behind the scenes of the dashboard, about 2 years in the making. So this is very exciting, and I'm really looking forward to walking you all through it tonight. So just as a little background, the data that's in this is it includes an inventory that we worked on of all existing affordable housing in the city, which there are a lot of different data sources on that. So that took a lot of work to compile such a database. And then the work was following that, we had to put systems in place with our permitting software to track new affordable housing coming through the city. And that's not only allowing us to keep track of those numbers, but it's also sort of the sticker that our staff see when it's an affordable housing project versus market rate, so that they are so that those projects are given those incentives, fee waivers, priority status, expedited review. So this is all this has all been a lot of work that I'm doing when I'm not working on planning commission stuff is getting all of these things tracked efficiently. And now we have excellent data that's regularly updated. This updates every single night. And so I'm going to walk you through what all you and the public can see. This is the link if anybody wants to type this in and follow along on their own screens. I will say this is not a mobile friendly tool. So I recommend using a tablet or a desktop for using this. Otherwise, you'll get frustrated. I'm going to stop sharing my screen just briefly here. Okay. Okay, so just a quick walkthrough of this, and then I'm going to pass the mic to our guest speaker. On the top right here is an introduction to the dashboard. I'm going to expand these as I talk about them so you can see more. And sorry, let me see if I can zoom in here. So you can see that a little better. Okay, so something to note, development projects are fluid. So some of the details that we have on the active projects going through approvals process, those details are subject to change. So please just keep that in mind. And we may not have all the information, all the details on a project as it is in development. Also, folks may be wondering, what do you mean by affordable housing? So this dashboard, the data that we're collecting is on all housing that is restricted to, so there's income restrictions associated with that property. So this is all non-market rate. And that could be very, people are familiar with the terms, very low income, affordable housing, workforce housing. It includes the full spectrum of housing. And the details for each project will break it down as to which income restrictions are associated with that project. And if you want to learn more about that, here's a link to the income limits posted annually by HUD for the Charleston metropolitan area. So just a few definitions here. The units that you can look at in the dashboard, and I'm actually going to up at the top here, purple is proposed units, and that means units that are currently going through our approvals process. So they have submitted some kind of application to the city. They're currently under review, up and coming. Green is existing units. That means they are already done. They have their certificate of occupancy. People are living there, assuming that they're not currently vacant. And then blue is committed units. These are units that have been committed by via planned unit development. So we know that once activity starts there, we will get a certain percentage dedicated to affordable housing. And so that's what those blue dots recommend. But the timelines for that that construction and approvals process is unknown. And the ultimate number of units is unknown because we don't know what that number will be when it's completely built out. And then here at the bottom, we have the bottom right, and I'll open this up, zoom in again. This is recapping the numbers that you all are very familiar with from our city plan. The 16,351 units that we need to fill or to close affordability gaps by 2030. And these numbers here reflect the data that we currently are tracking. So we have 828 currently under review, leaving, and we have 5,553 existing, leaving 15,523. So we're slowly chipping away. As you can see, the number's already gone down from when the city plan was adopted or when that first analysis was run. However, I will say there's one caveat to that. The 16,351 number was generated by not just deed restricted affordable housing, but also naturally occurring affordable housing. So housing that was not restricted to a certain income range, but that just at that time was priced at a level that was affordable to someone making up to 120% of the area median income. That could have easily have changed by now, and it probably has. So just to keep in mind this.
These numbers were 2021, beginning of
2020.
20, so 2 years, so definitely.
Just keep in mind, these numbers are a good sort of just ballpark.
Goal, yeah.
Ballpark goal. So I would, yeah, ballpark is a good way to think about it. And until we have a reliable way to update that sort of market data, which we don't currently have, that number is what we're going to use. So this little pie chart here just shows that same breakdown, but in a visual way. So we've got these purple ones going through existing units and then the remaining affordability gap. So in the middle here is the interactive map. You can zoom in just using your mouse, zooming in and out. You can click on a dot and it will let me expand this window so optimize this view. Okay, so click on a dot and this is a proposed unit because of it's purple, and you'll see the details of that site pop up. So this one is just a single unit, single family dwelling, and it will tell you if it's for sale or for rental, if there's land provided by the city, if it's a LIHTC or low income housing tax credit project, any funding sources that are going toward it, and any this is a fun one that I'm excited to have more data on, which we're actually tracking any of our affordable housing incentive districts or planned unit develop. So in what way is our zoning ordinance helping to contribute to the number of units? So this was a bad example to click on because it's not showing anything here, but we are collecting that data. If you click on an existing unit, we're not giving out people's individual addresses. We're just sort of, some basic information about that. And then I'll show you an example with, I'll go to Laurel Island here. For committed units, all we're showing is the name of it and the percent that they've committed to be affordable for that. There's the map. And then on the left here is the list of all affordable units. So if you can just scroll through those and see those names here. And when you click on the project that you want to see, it will zoom to that on the map. So you can go to low-line housing, Gateway at Charleston, it's over in West Ashley. So just Jenkins down Johns Island, so you can see that's another way to scroll through it. And then this bottom part, it's not what you can see. At the bottom, there are a series of charts that break down this more of the data that's in here. So this shows an estimated completion by year. This is our rough estimation. And as we have more projects coming, starting the approvals process, so these numbers later on will, for 2-3 years out, will increase. This is the sort of over time unit creation by year. So this is just existing units and not those going through the approvals process. Units by region. So this is of the city where we're seeing the most units. And this is broken down by existing and proposed. So where the green is units we have currently, affordable units, and then purple is proposed. This is breaking it down by building multifamily or single family. And, oh, sorry. Okay, there's some legends missing here. But if you hover over here, you can see on the left, the darker purple is for sale. On the right is rental. And these are of proposed current, so the current units, this is breaking it down, but is it multifamily or single family, and then for sale or rental? And these are the ones going through the approval process right now. And then this is breaking it down by those income levels. So it's a little funky. We couldn't get it to go in order. So It starts at 100% of the area median income. And then 120 and then goes to 30. So just, that's the kind of weird thing that we couldn't work out. But these numbers at the bottom are showing as percent of the area median income, the income of the person living in the unit, and what those units are restricted to. So we have, this is just for example, about 3,000 existing units for folks making 30% or less of the area median income. And of the proposed units we have, sort of the most are being created right now are for 60% area median income or less, followed by 50% or less. And so we actually, and then in third place, 120% or less, or that often known as workforce housing. And then lastly, this is showing where those that are using city funding or where city funding is going to projects, where that funding is coming from. So this is the bond that citizens voted on several years ago. This is fee in lieu generated by our mixed use workforce housing zones. And home is a HUD program. And then this is from the Low Country Development Corporation, also now known as the Climb Fund. That is your grand tour. Are there any questions?
Questions? Ms. Harrison?
So, so the other, I found this document, I found it because I was helping my assistant try to find like affordable housing. Is there any way that we can know, or is that something that y'all are keeping private if there are ones that rent, right?
Like actually like looking if someone's
Yeah,
trying to
being able
find
to
housing?
Yeah, and know exactly like who, you know, who to call and figure that out.
That is a great question. We're not there yet. And we're not sure what the city's role could be in that. But that is a great question. Currently, we do not have that resource except for, I say, if someone calls the city asking, I say call Florence, and then Florence Peter helps sort of navigate, point them in the right direction.
Sure,
She generally, yeah. So right now we have a person who can help with that, but not a site.
Right, okay, because, yeah, because there was like, oh, well, I think, you know, that particular property has units, you know, other than that person, but I couldn't get that information.
Right.
As to like what number to call, like,
right,
or what the name is.
Wait, questions, comments? Yes, ma'am, Ms. Jacobs.
Thank you. I think this is exactly what the commission is committed to, since the city plan has asked for as information, so we can look at policies, so we can better understand the recommendations that come to us or the zoning requests, so we much more founded with this kind of information. My question is, I know that Jonah Shell Johnson and her group, and I think there might even be a committee of council, community development that works directly with affordable housing. I think they would like best for me to find out if there are meetings in the office where they're discussing these things. Available is that for me? I know the community development is probably on they're still meeting by Zoom. Is community development still? Do we know?
They are.
Are they going to live?
Council committees so far are still, main council is in person, but
So that could be easily found.
And she could listen in and join.
they typically meet the fourth Thursday of the month. The time varies, but it's usually.
And Gianna's usually interacting with that committee.
Yes, among other staffers, yes, she's very involved.
I just want to find other ways that.
And I think Ms. Jacobs,
Commissioners and continue.
Ms. Jacobs is right. We want to, this helps us keep our eye on the ball, so to speak. We know what the goals are and how we're doing so far. So any other questions or comments? Corey, thank you for your
Mr.
work.
Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Comment about this, and then I wanted to just address the commission on
Yeah,
something we
thank
talked
you.
about last time.
Perfect.
This is incredible. It's an immense amount of work. I'm so impressed. I think this will be a model for other communities.
I can't believe that you've got that much data on each of those dots. It's amazing. So I'm very impressed. For the commission, I wanted to follow up on our discussion at our last meeting about how we can continue to look at this issue and to recommend to city council policies. After speaking with Mr. Morgan a couple of times, and he had conversations with the city attorney, what they're recommending, which I think is a good idea, is rather than establishing a formal committee that has specific membership, that we have to limit the number of commissioners in any meeting to 4, no more than 4.
Because then it becomes a quorum after that.
Then we have a quorum, and then it has to be publicly noticed and so forth. So what I think we should probably try to do is set some regular meetings. And then again, and have anybody would be welcome to attend on the commission, and we'll just make it first come, first serve for people to sign up. So if you can't make every meeting, that's okay. It would give other commissioners the chance to participate. I started putting together a list of resources in the community that we could bring in to help us. We've heard from Mr. Roberts. I see representatives of the Chamber of Commerce here, and they're working on this issue and have some resources that we probably ought to consult and listen to. So we will be in touch with y'all about participating in that. But anyway, I just want to let everybody know we're moving on that, and you should be hearing from me through Christopher this month about scheduling.
And I appreciate Mr. Lassane taking this on, because I feel very good about him handling this. He's got good connections, knows how the city council works and everything else.
And then I had one other issue. I was contacted this afternoon, and Mr. Carrick was too, by Jeffrey Roberts, who we heard from, I can't remember if it was the last meeting or the meeting before last, about the micro unit ordinance that we unanimously approved to recommend to council. I don't normally do this, but he asked, and I wanted to pass along his request that we reach out to members of council that we're comfortable reaching out to recommend that ordinance. He's been talking to council and
getting some pushback.
And it's getting a little pushback, on certain issues. So I think it would be beneficial. We don't generally do that as a commission. But I think this is a really, what we did through our comp plan is really put a stake in the ground and say, we're gonna work hard on affordable housing in the community. And so I'm comfortable recommending to everybody that this is important, that we, this is the first ordinance. It was recommended by the city plan. It's the first ordinance that's come through this commission, that's doing something innovative to support the development of housing. So,
and that goes to our city council on the 22nd.
22nd. And I think one of the other things too about that particular ordinance is, while it does not talk about income restrictions or limitations, it is what we've also talked about, which is attainable housing and limiting the expanse of how far you have to go. There is nothing greater than being able to walk within a 1 to 2 mile radius, and being able to go to grocery store, to go to whatever services you want, and literally walking across the street to where you work, and makes you stay within that. It makes you be a part of that community. And so also, I think one of the things that I've had conversation too about this is the concept of whether or not it will recruit more minorities into the community. And I think one of the things that I remember asking this commission to put into the comprehensive plan is that in its recruitment, that we are, we're not a monolith, and there's an expansive amount of professionals. And I use the model of, I know exactly how much money I was making in 2004 when I started as a lawyer. I was living in Somerville. Hopefully that price point that I now, if I was to be a first year 1L out of first year out of law school, could I afford to live downtown based on rents? No, but could I afford something that was.
High too. So I don't know.
Can I afford
Gas-
some?
Gas prices.
Gas prices,
Yeah.
gas prices, you know, I just was in traffic from Somerville to Charleston this week at 7:30 in the morning, and I wanted to scream out loud. But back to my point is that if we're talking about populations and the increase or growth or increasing populations, this is how you do it. Because once you become invested in a place, you don't want to leave.
And I think, Mr. Sain, I think something Mr. Roberts alluded to is maybe people have an issue with the parking or something
Yes.
about that parking.
Yeah, and he mentioned parking and
I have not driven my car for 3 days.
yeah, so I mean, I think.
Because I walk across the street to work.
One of the things that we've said as a commission is there's not a single answer to affordable housing. It's gonna take lots of smaller, I mean, this isn't a earth-shaking ordinance, but it's
It'll help.
doing something. It will help. And I think, that's the point of our committee or not committee, working group that we're gonna have is let's look for places where we can achieve some wins. And this, in my opinion, is an opportunity to achieve a win.
And as Mr. Sain said, I greatly appreciate anyone that feels they have a contact with someone on the city council to let them know that we pass this thing, we support it, and we hope they will as well.
Yeah,
What I've said the night we worked on that is that I see this as such an advantage because it's mainly focused at the women's health. This kind of stuff. And I worked at the Medical University for almost 40 years. And the hardest thing to do was have somebody come in for a sabbatical or a graduate student and find housing. And most of them come from places where they're not coming with cars, or they're coming from Europe where they're used to taking a bus. And so what you do is by putting that housing close to that employer, the Citadel, the Medical University, the College of Charleston, in a format that they are really going to grab onto, you take those people away from that inventory of everything else, where they're next thing they know, they've got to buy a car and they've got to drive them from Somerville, and they don't want to because they're literally working 12, 15 hours a day, and all they want to do is sleep and maybe have a microwave to warm their food in. So I don't think people are looking at this through the wrong lens.
Right. And I appreciate, Chloe, we appreciate the report. We appreciate Mr. Slane with the initiatives he's taken and that working group. If there's no other questions, we do have one other presentation, but I don't want to cut anybody off if there's any questions or comments.
I would just say one other thing.
Yes, sir.
I know we're on the record and on video, but for me, and this is what I'm going to say to council, as a member of this commission, we all spend a lot of time on this. And there have been times when we have passed things unanimously and then they have gone down in flames at council for one reason or another. And that always disappoints me. And I think, we worked really hard on this plan, and city council approved this plan through a lot of public hearings and a lot of work. They approved this plan, and we are doing what we are supposed to be doing by working to implement this plan. So that's going to be my message to them is you asked us to do this. We gave you a plan, you approved this plan, let's step up and do something.
Right.
And I will only add that at one time we were trying to find time for like a regular scheduled program, working with council on workshop. And there's some pushback on that. That's not unprecedented in the United States. There are cities that require quarterly meetings between the planning commission and the city to work on a big picture of 30,000 view. We have such a paradigm shift in the city of Charleston right now that we really may need to sort of really work at figuring out how to have a regularly scheduled program in the council where we just and if we do that regularly on just affordable housing and the Dutch dialogues, then things might go a lot smoother.
And I want to move on because we do have a guest here, but what Mr. Lassane said is sometimes we'll spend hours on a topic, and city council spent 15 minutes. Not that they're not looking at it, but I feel like we're getting informed and doing our homework. So when we pass something on, we hope, and staff listens to us, and staff tells us and educates us. So we hope they listen to us. But if there's no other questions, we appreciate Mr. Lassane. Chloe, appreciate your report. We do have one more item on the agenda, and I appreciate your patience. And if you would, Kenneth, I don't want to mispronounce your last name. And we appreciate your being here, appreciate your patience through this meeting as well, and we look forward to you.
Good evening, my name is Kenneth Marolda. I'm the president of the Avondale Civic Club, which is Avondale Association. I prepared a document over the last year, which is an area character appraisal. For those who aren't familiar, it's a document that looks to record the unique characteristics of a neighborhood. And the city has done several of these in the past. There was one for Cattleboro area, Elliotsboro, Burns Downs, and so I noticed that one hadn't been done for my neighborhood, and I decided to undertake it.
No, I don't want to, but I think your neighborhood in general, we talked about the donut holes. You have a lot of county property
Yes, sir.
in Avondale. So,
That's how I got
so,
it.
yep.
Can you adjust the microphone so that it's right in front of you? Because that is the pickup for the YouTube feed. So we can hear you great, but we just want to make sure that the YouTube listeners can too. Great, thank
Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. So I have a paper copy here that I just flagged a couple of the diagrams to go through, about 10 of them. And so maybe if I can just give you the page number, we can just go to it. The first page is page 6, which clarify in creating this document, there are two terms for Avondale. There's the Avondale neighborhood, and then there's Avondale Point Business District. Avondale neighborhood is a neighborhood around 37 acres, and it's mostly residential homes with 2 little commercial areas, 1 commercial corridor, and then 1 commercial parcel, 2 commercial parcels along the highway. Whereas the Avondale Point is comprised of 5 different neighborhoods. So we're discussing the Avondale neighborhood itself in this document. Next one's page 20, please. Page 20, please. So I created a chronology, which Chloe had just scrolled through, and I'm not going to go through all of those points because I don't think they're particularly relevant to this presentation tonight. But this is a memory map, and it just literally maps out the historical sites that are located in the neighborhood that either once existed or still exist and were once very prominent. I included this so that when planning decisions are made in the future, formal documentation. There are comments all over Facebook, other places that talk about these things, but formal research into them and their significance seems to be missing. Some of them, at least. Some of them, Ms. Jacobs has documented in writings and elsewhere, but there were a couple that were never documented. Next one, page 23. This diagram is showing Avondale with the surrounding neighborhoods, and it just shows very neatly how these neighborhoods all share boundaries, and they were once different farms or plantations. And so when we think about traffic and we think about sidewalks and some of these other features of daily life, these are the reasons why they were planned the way they are. The neighborhoods were developed at slightly different times, and I have the dates of when each of them was planned along the right-hand side. The next one is page 33, please. Many of the pages that I'm going through talk about the historic road, call it the road grid or the street grid for the area and how it evolved over time. That's included in the chronology of this document. But the main one I want to talk about is Sanford Boulevard. And this one is a kind of chronic problem or continuing discussion within my neighborhood. And it's one of the things that probably do this is discussions of bike lanes and pedestrian safety crossing the boulevard. These are all discussions that we've been having in my neighborhood for my 2-year tenure now as the president. And I thought that it's important to look at it kind of from a planning perspective. I know the planning department does, but looking at the reasons why it is the way it is. And it was planned originally, it was 4-lane highway, and then it wasn't completely designed, it became a 2-lane highway, and then 6-lane highway, and now we have 2 lanes in each direction.
It's not a boulevard anymore.
It's not a boulevard anymore. It is a major highway, and returning it to a boulevard, I hope is in the future.
We talked about that tonight.
Next page, please. Next page is just for comparative purposes. It's a neighborhood street, the average street in Avondale. We don't have sidewalks for the majority of Avondale. We only have them along St. Andrews Boulevard and a small section along 17 highway. Each there's one driving lane, 12.5 feet, and then 12.5 foot public driveway on each side. And next. The next one is speed limits. So I just created a chart to show the different speed limits in the neighborhood. Most of it is 20 to 25 miles an hour. Obviously, St. Andrews Boulevard is not highway higher. And just for comparison, I included Sycamore, even though it's not in the neighborhood, because it's the only one that's 30 miles an hour. Page 38, please. So page 38 has what's called non-rectilinear intersections, and these are intersections that don't meet the highway at right angles. Right angles are obviously easiest to turn both in all directions. And Oakdale Place does not have a traffic light to make these turns. It's also hitting St. Andrews Boulevard, at a greater than 90-degree angle in several ways. This is because this street predates the highway or the boulevard. It was the original plantation entrance shown on the memory map that I created at the start. And it's one of the streets that I mentioned earlier. I created a chronology of the street grid, the evolution of the street grid. It used to continue all the way to 17, and it was meant to connect 17 to the marsh. Obviously, it's used to change over time, and that's created a chronic problem. There's a school on one corner, there's business on the other corner, and 2 of the remaining corners have residences. So there's no way to cross this safely as a pedestrian, unless it's very late at night or very early in the morning. And I wanted to point it out just as an example of, again, one of the reasons why I decided to make this step. Page 44.
At 44.
Yes, please. Age of the structures. So this was just a study. I chose this one just to demonstrate that we did look at every single structure that's in Avondale. For age, we looked at facade material, architectural typologies, height, many characteristics, and this one just happens to be age. And I just wanted to provide as a sample for the format of the diagramming of those criteria. Next, so this page fits, I think, pretty well with this the last discussion that just had, which is missing middle housing. And missing middle is a puzzle piece of affordable housing. It's not a silver bullet, but it does help with missing middle, with affordable housing. For my job, I work with affordable housing every day. So I work with largely missing middle housing. And
What do you do, sir?
I do property management for multifamily homes. So these are, missing middle refers to housing types that fit very well into a neighborhood in terms of scale, massing, height, and yet have more than one unit on the property. So duplexes, triplexes, converted garages, mother-in-law suites, those types of things. And Avondale has many of them. It's 12, I think it's almost 13% of the houses in Avondale have them, and there actually used to be more. What's now Colony Drive was originally planned to have more of them, and there were many, and there still are. So I'd just like to point out that is something that's always been a part of Avondale's history. It's not something new that's being created or inserted into the neighborhood artificially. And this news article clipping that I included right at the center is one of the advertisements for it from when Avondale was first being marketed. It shows very clearly that it was being rented out,
and that this was something that was attractive. They were marketing this because it was an attractive amenity for people purchasing homes. '46, please. This one is architectural styles. So this is the most detailed diagram that we took the most time, but I think it's also perhaps the most rewarding to look at and to view. And it just shows that there's a great array of different architectural types in my neighborhood. It's not just one single type. And when you compare this diagram to the age of structures diagram, you'll find that that kind of reflects trends over time. It was popular in the 1940s during the first wave of development, 1950s, 1960s. They each had kind of their own unique appeal, if you will. And these are discussions that I guess would usually happen in the BAR of architectural styles, but it was something that we chose to document here as well. The next few pages of the document detail those styles. They provide definitions. And page 52, please. Just to show height of structures. Many of the structures, even the ones that go 1 to 2 stories. And then the next, please. So just looking at the average lot coverage in the neighborhood. Page 58, please. And now we've reached the donut holes. One of those donut holes is my house. I am a county resident, I say resident. I would like, I'm not eligible for annexation.
Why is that? You're not connected?
Not contiguous.
Oh, I see.
None of the parcel around me annexed. But because my neighborhood,
Daniel Allen.
since my neighborhood has greater than 51% parcels in the city, our neighborhood association is eligible to join the neighborhood council, which was with the city of Charleston, and so that is how and why I'm here. So 49% of my neighborhood is still in the county.
Wow, that's amazing. I didn't think it was that much. So that must be what West Ash. That's what must be one of the most county populated neighborhoods out there.
Yes, and that's why we don't have sidewalks. So we can't get.
You always have to look at the trash to see who's where, the color of the trash can.
Yes. And the last one I'll bring up is the next page. Oh, so yeah, the zoning map. So this just looks at county and city zoning, and R4 and SR1 are the city and county's base residential zonings, and they comprise 69.79% of zoning in Annabelle. But there are other various zoning categories in the neighborhood. I figured I would just offer to answer any other questions you have about the document.
Thank you. You're the president of the Neighborhood Association, and you donated your time and energy to do this, so we appreciate it. And it's a wonderful model. Ms. Jacobs has been talking to us about that for a while. Questions?
Mr. Moraldo also serves on the West Ashley Revitalization Commission. And one thing that Mayor Tecklenburg said to us as commissioners, and I was on the initial commission, was that commissioners should pick up something and run with the project. And this definition of historic neighborhoods or understanding of neighborhoods and preserving of the community was one of the prime conversations during that Plan West Ashley process. So Mr. Moraldo he didn't tell you that he is degreed in this also. Yes, he can tell you that the different degrees he has in historic preservation and community work, in addition to his professional work in real estate. And he presented this to the West Ashley Revitalization Commission for information a few months ago. And I saw that presentation, and I know Mr. Moraldo, and I said, you know, I really hate to see this work just done.
One neighborhood.
And well, it might be a model for how things are done. And it's an extensive amount of work. We're up to page, 50 something on there. So you've missed a lot of the work, but you see the depth and the elegance of how he drilled into this neighborhood, which on the history side, I helped him a little bit because we found some really interesting plats that he didn't share with you tonight. So I asked of staff if he could bring this forward for y'all to see, because I felt it was, one, important, and two, I would really like tonight to make a motion that this document serve as a staff resource for, like the other area character appraisals that were officially commissioned by the city and paid for. Here we're getting a beautiful, elegant one gratis, that we add that to the shelf with those others for resource. And if at any time, some of the work in this document comes back to where we can use it in a policy or ordinance, we would move that forward through council. But I would like pushing that at least the documents serve as a resource for staff.
And I think Mr. Lassane second that motion, I believe.
I have a question. How long did it take you to prepare this?
It's amazing.
I mean, because I have no, I want to have this kind of time in my life. Someday.
I actually started with the Annexation Act very soon after I was elected president of Continental, because there was an outdated one that was given, and I knew it wasn't accurate. And then I was like, well, what else can we go to? So I started that probably in February or March of last year, 2021, and I just chipped away at it on weekends. We had an intern with Touch University, and West Ashley Connects did an internship with him, so that it actually counted for credit for his school. So he was able to do some of the data gathering and create family charts. Yeah. So with his help and with input from Ms. Jacobs and city staff over the last year or so.
I was gonna say, this is the kind of thing that people think about doing, but don't actually do, so.
No,
Kudos.
I would just say thank you too, and echo my colleagues. And what a great gift to your neighborhood and to our city. So that's fantastic.
Can we?
And I would say one more thing.
Yes, sir.
She's the resource. Ms. Joyce, Ms. Jacobs is a historian of West Ashley and has published how many? 2 books on the history of West Ashley. So the fact that the two of y'all are talking, I'm all.
And so this motion, hopefully, I'm sure it'll pass. We'd like to send that to city council, that they hear it and they understand, and they hopefully will accept that as well, so. Okay, so there's a motion by Ms. Jacobs, a second by Mr. Lassane. Any other questions or comments? Again, thank you for your work. Thank you for coming and being with us tonight. It's great. All in favor of the motions, raise your hand, please. Thank you. I think that that is everything we have on the agenda. Does anybody have anything they want to bring up? Not, we thank you for everyone. Sir, I don't want to pick on you, but Mr. Lassane alluded to you, and you're there, and you're the only one of 2 gentlemen. I'd like to know who you are, that's all.